You're listening to 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair, and you're listening to The Morning Buzz. I'm your host, Jake Goetz, joined by co-host Aidan Ivers and a whole bunch of lovely folks on Zoom because there was a little bit of a snow. We got a bit of snow, didn't we?
Yeah, not that much, but nevertheless.
Yes, on Zoom, we're joined by who we have in Zoom. Can we hear you?
I'm George.
We got George. I cannot hear George. Very sad. I really need to hear George right now, but I unfortunately cannot. Oh
no.
Let's try it. Oh, there he is.
Hey.
There he is. Awesome. George Calasia, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Jake. How are you?
I'm doing just incredible.
Looking
Do
lovely.
we have thank you. Do we also have a Julia Slevin on Zoom?
We do. Hi.
How are you doing? How's conditions from where you are?
Oh, it's good. I mean, it's not crazy bad. I'm just really bad at driving and navigating in the snow. I'm the worst driver out there, so
It's okay, Julia. Side note, congratulations on becoming a boy train DJ.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you.
Yes, of course. We just had a bunch of DJs. I guess you could say graduate from the ADJ program, and our very own Julia Slevin was one of them. So congratulations, Julia.
Thank
you. This is a perfect opportunity for you to show off what you learned by giving us our 7 o'clock newscast.
All righty. Well, cool. Okay, so like he said, I'm Julia, and this is WMSC News. So for our top story, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed a bill on Monday stripping Disney of its longtime self-governing status. So for over nearly 50 years, the area surrounding Walt Disney World has had its own way of governing and creating its own development plan. This bill is in response to last year when Disney company spoke out about the Don't Say Gay bill, which is restricted by what public schools are able to teach regarding sexual orientation and gender identity. Moving on to national story, Biden is apparently banning TikTok. So the Biden administration is giving federal agencies 30 days to ensure that they do not have the app TikTok on any federal devices. Sources say this ban is for cybersecurity reasons and for the fear that data falling into the wrong hands. Employees cannot have the app downloaded on any government device and are strongly encouraged to delete the app in general. Now, moving on to some local news, Mercer County Sheriff Officer was arrested Friday for pointing a handgun at a woman's head and threatening to kill her. Matthew Sickler, 35, remained in the Ocean County Jail Monday, records show. He is charged with aggravated assault, making terroristic threats, eluding and resisting arrest, and possession of a weapon for an unlawful purpose, authorities say. And up in very own Montclair, public schools are having delayed openings as of February 28th due to the snowy and rainy weather. That's regarding high school and elementary schools. And moving on to weather, speaking of weather, keep watching out for the winter storm that is in effect today until around 1 p.m. We are seeing the results of last night's snow showers mixing with some rain. Today is going to be a high of 38 degrees, but it is going to feel around 25 degrees. So be careful driving and bundle up for this chilly Tuesday. And that's it for me. Back to you, Jake.
Thank you so much, Julia. And now here's George Calasia with your sportscast.
All right. Washington Commanders, this is for the NFL, the Washington Commanders have released quarterback Carson Wentz. This move creates $26 million in cap space. And obviously with NFL free agency coming up, that opens up a nice chunk of change for the Commanders to use in free agency. For the NBA, Los Angeles Lakers superstar LeBron James is set to miss multiple weeks due to a foot injury. Reports say that there is no timeline for LeBron's return to the court. We got another injury. Charlotte Hornets guard LaMelo Ball suffered a fractured ankle in last night's game against the Pistons. Again, there is no timeline for LaMelo's return. For the NHL trade deadline continues with some more big trades. The Toronto Maple Leafs have acquired Sam Lafferty, Jake McCabe, a 2024 conditional 5th-round pick, a 2025 conditional 5th-round pick from the Chicago Blackhawks in exchange for a 2025 first-round pick, 2026 second-round pick, and players Joey Anderson and Pavel Gogolev. And for MSU sports, the Montclair State University men's basketball team have clinched a spot in the NCAA men's Division III tournament. They are set to play Hamilton College in Baltimore on Friday. Congratulations to the men's basketball team. This has been George Calasia with your WMSC Sportscast.
Thank you so much, George, for that incredible sportscast. And jumping right into the show, Aidan, I believe we have some breaking news.
We do, Jake, indeed. According to the New York Times, today, Supreme Court will hear arguments over whether President Biden can cancel student debt. The justice's eventual ruling will affect tens of millions of low and middle income Americans who could qualify for up to $20,000 in student debt forgiveness. The case itself, however, resolves around more technical legal arguments than around policy debates about whether borrowers need help. If the Supreme Court agrees with Biden's critics that the loan forgiveness plan is presidential overreach, the court could end the program entirely. It could also further limit presidential powers beyond debt relief, potentially restricting executive actions on other fraught political and economic issues. And given the court's 6-3 conservative majority, the outcome is pretty plausible. And I think this is really interesting because this is actually something that President Biden campaigned on in 2020.
Yeah,
said,
student debt relief.
A vote for me is a vote for getting your student debt forgiven. And we actually heard a lot about this over the summer, I believe, when this is coming to fruition. And seems like there's a lot more behind it, like behind those words.
Yeah, absolutely. It does seem like there has been efforts in that direction. And I think that this is a really important story to follow, especially to see how the Supreme Court handles it, because of course, whatever they decide and whatever gets said in that, in that area is going to have widespread effects that could very well affect, students on Montclair.
That's very true, Jake. And I think like the general idea where this kind of litigation, this blockage comes from is from people who say, well, for the people who like already paid their college debt,
Right.
if they took on the debt, they paid it off, there's these other people who still need to pay theirs. And it's like, well, where's that money actually going? And that's of course, it would help people out a lot by taking this money off their backs. But I feel like that's generally where this hardship is coming from, I think, because as we said before, it really doesn't look that easy. But we're going to keep following the story and we're going to see what happens.
No, absolutely. And then moving on to the kind of story that's on everyone's minds this morning. New Jersey weather, latest snow, sleet, rain forecast, warnings for a messy winter storm. New Jersey's first snowstorm of the season for the northern counties is expected to bring a sloppy mix of snow, sleet, and rain to the central region. This weather hit Monday night and is continuing into this morning. Mostly plain rain is on tap for the state's southern region. Temperatures are expected to remain above the freezing mark. Many forecasters are calling for 4 to 6 inches of snow. I'm wondering if that's I believe this is from last night. I wonder how that measures up to what we see outside today. There are even some pockets 6 to 8 inches, mainly in high elevation sections of Passaic and Sussex counties. And about 1 to 2 inches of snow is likely in the northernmost areas of central Jersey, while mostly plain rain, about 1/2 inch is expected in South Jersey.
Yeah, so I think this relates to like our geological structure because last night around 8 o'clock, it was snowing here, right?
Right, yeah.
And I was talking to my dad in Staten Island and I said, "Is it snowing there?" And he said, "No, it's not snowing at all." So, and that's because Staten Island is lower, way lower to like the ocean level as opposed to us. We're really high up. So, yeah, I mean, there's differences in like accumulation depending on which places are higher up and closer to ocean level.
Yes, of course. And I know that Montclair's campus is of course still open today. I understand that was a decision that was that was kind of questioned by some of the student body. And driving in today, of course, see lots of, essential workers, lots of operations underway to make sure that the roads are safe, or as safe as they can be
Yeah.
for everyone commuting in this morning.
And I think we should give props to the people who on campus who are in those trucks and vehicles with the
Yeah.
plows, because not many people will be willing to do that, or way early in the morning or way late at night. So
Absolutely, it's tough work. Even just coming in and having to shovel in my driveway to get here was like,
yeah,
this
definitely
is so much.
yeah, not many people are going to be in class today. I can assure you, because we're a commuter school. Most people come to campus by driving or transportation.
Yeah,
And just for today, maybe tomorrow. So there's gonna be we can expect a lot less students in the classes if we have class today.
yeah. And I'm also wondering how the parking situation is going to be. I know Montclair is generally known kind of
Yeah.
infamous for its parking. And
Mhm.
I know a lot of outdoor spots have been kind of, I don't know if abandoned is the right word,
Just
but
buried for now.
yeah,
Unavailable.
buried. So driving into car park this evening, this morning, I think there's like a lot of cars, and
Yeah.
the sign even says that it's full, which
bet-
doesn't seem to be
I
true.
don't-
I got one on like I got one on the first floor, but
yeah, I don't know what that's about.
I wonder if parking is going to be a lot more limited today because of what happens there.
Yeah, and just a side note, Jake, our producer Lara Zaccardi said that Sussex and Morris counties in New Jersey got 5 to 8 inches of snow throughout the night, and compared to us, we only had like a couple. If we walk out of campus right now, so again, it relates to differences in geological structure, because again, we're like northeast, those places are more central Jersey, more lower, so makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, taking us out of the local area, want to get into this international news we got?
Sure. According to theguardian.com, there's been outbursts of violent conflict around villages in the West Bank as Israeli settlers attacked villages and towns south of Nablus, including across the villages of Huara, Zatara, Barin, and Al-Kibliya. The Guardian reports that the attacks carried out by 100 armed Israelis guided by Israeli Defense Forces came after the killing of 2 Israeli brothers by a Palestinian gunman along a nearby highway. Videos and descriptions show cars and homes set ablaze, and reporters are ranging from 100 to 390 injured. Footage of the attacks shows dozens of cars and houses being burned. Reports show that Sama Atkash, a 37-year-old blacksmith, was killed, and the BBC reports that an Israeli American has also been killed. And this is really really unfortunate story to read so early in the morning.
No, of course, and it's tough to see kind of spark up again. I know that there was a conference between Israeli and Palestinian officials in Jordan semi recently to kind of discuss de-escalation. And yeah, it's definitely a story to follow and keep an eye on.
Yeah, and I think like as people maybe not in this community, I mean, I certainly would not be fond of waking up to seeing like violence at my window, so
No. And another thing about this story, just because I was I had a little help in bringing this one in, is I wanted to include multiple outlets because it's very interesting to see how different organizations cover this news.
Okay.
And how they frame the story, like the Guardian and BBC, for instance. Very stark difference in focus and shape. So when following the story, I think that careful listeners should kind of exercise caution in that degree.
Yeah, and just from people living across the world, from this community, I think the best thing we could do is just hope that this violence, this type of anarchy doesn't continue on for that long, because if it does, we can expect to read more people getting senselessly murdered, or buildings being destroyed as well.
Yeah, more
senselessly,
escalation.
And that's not really good for a healthy community like that. So
yeah. And speaking of what's not good for a healthy community, we're going to talk about disinformation. Rupert Murdoch admits some Fox News hosts, quote, endorsed false election fraud claims. News Corp executive chairman Rupert Murdoch declined to rein in Fox News hosts who spread false claims of voter fraud. In the days after the 2020 election, despite privately expressing that he saw little evidence for then President Donald Trump's claims and that he found half of them bulls and damaging. Murdoch said in testimony released in the court documents that Fox News was, quote, trying to straddle the line between spewing conspiracy theories on one hand, yet calling out the fact that they are actually false on the other, end quote. Murdoch acknowledged in testimony that some of these hosts, including Sean Hannity, Lou Dobbs, and Maria Barnetto, had done more than just give a platform to baseless claims of voter fraud. According to documents, Murdoch said, quote, yes, they endorsed it.
Yeah, and this is definitely a really interesting case because we were talking about last week, Jake, about how there's a bunch of different topics today that really can't find a lot of common ground between Americans, right?
Mhm.
And for this one that we were talking about, this one just seems like it's one of those things, but it's sprouted from like no good reason. You know, it's not really one of those things where people can
Yeah.
hold like together. Right?
No, yeah. And I think that's a really good kind of way of describing it. It's an intangible issue.
Yeah.
Right. Like it didn't, like, I'm pretty sure the 2020 elections was one of the most, vetted, kind of secure elections as far as they go. Like that's what all the data seems to say.
Yeah.
And you had a bunch of people just claiming that it was fraudulent in some way.
Yeah.
When
And,
there was just nothing there to suggest that.
and that definitely has added flames to the fire, so to speak,
Mhm.
regarding the political divide that we feel today.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I think the idea of like the big lie is still an absolutely like large force in politics.
Yeah,
right now.
and interestingly, though, Jake, when President Donald Trump said he's running for president 2024 again, like with his speech, I don't think he made any reference or any remarks regarding this topic, right? He didn't say like, well, yeah, they did something with the last election, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He didn't make any regard to that. So it could relate to the idea that maybe he realizes that idea is really, really, really divisive in itself.
Mhm.
So by bringing it up, by maybe not bringing it up, that kind of eases a little bit. I mean, it's already like a really heated.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to someone like Trump, I guess how I imagine the logic goes is less about, cohesion or anything and more about just not dwelling on losses. Because like I don't know, I feel like that's just the strategy
Yeah.
there. But
Yeah. I mean,
who's to say? Who's to say
Yeah.
there's any rhyme or reason to it?
with the coming months, Jake, in next year's election,
Mhm.
it's gonna be really, really interesting to hear about whether these types of claims are gonna still be as strong as they are, or they might just. I mean, thinking about it now, they probably will persist. They
Mhm.
probably will be like very strong then as well. But we're just gonna have to cover and see what happens regarding these national politicians, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And yeah, we can also move into what some of our more localized actors are doing.
Yeah. According to the Montclarian.org, President Capel to invest $1 million into Eastside High School in Patterson. And shout out to me because I wrote this article for our Montclair newspaper on campus.
Very good work.
Yeah, thank you. The Montclair State University president, Jonathan Capel, made an investment of $1 million in grant money to the Eastside High School in Patterson. The grant comes from a program that Capel started during his time in Arizona State University. And according to an article done by NJ.com, 1 Square Mile is the initiative developed by him while he was Dean of Watts College of Public Service at Arizona State. The grant comes from the Geraldine R. Dodge Foundation. It explains how Capel went to Patterson with a vision to make Eastside High School a community hub with free meals, mental health counseling, and healthcare opportunities for its families and 2,000 students in attendance. The article describes how Patterson's poverty rate is more than twice the average rate in New Jersey, and 25% of its neighborhood is living below the poverty line. And when I was writing this article, a general idea that most of the students I asked shared with me is that sure, what President Capel is doing for Eastside High School is
Yeah.
really, really good, because it revitalizes that community, that low income community, and it brightens the futures of students who may be
Yeah,
looking
absolutely.
to seek higher education. At the same time, though, there are multiple different aspects of campus here that could very much use that type of money to make campus better itself, right?
Yeah.
For example, some students were talking about like with the village, how an investment of more security cameras around there could, ranging from that the breakage that went on last
Yeah, the robbery.
semester and the robbery, yeah. Just more security around there could benefit us as well, but it's up to that's not really in our control. It's up to President
Yeah.
Capel.
Yeah, of course it always comes down to, those in power how to use it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's an interesting thing. I think I'll say that I think, and I am a commuter, of course, so I can't really speak completely to conditions on campus and what they're like, and the problems that are faced by people who live on campus and who especially people who are in situations where they kind of have to live on campus and they really rely on this infrastructure. Though I will say that, like, for me, to say that, like, I don't know, I feel like it's a bold claim to say that conditions on campus are so bad that it makes, investments like these wrong or unnecessary.
Yeah, it's not like we walk around here and there's like
Yeah.
broken buildings altogether. They're still like buildings with like functioning things.
Yeah, no. And it's tough. I don't know fully like what, like I said, like I don't know fully like the problems that students face living on campus, and if there are really larger structural issues, I feel like I'd be aware, but maybe I'm not. But I know that, like, when we talk about ways of, lowering inequality in this country, I feel like it always comes down to those, like, investment, being able to
Yeah.
invest in these communities. And I think, an institution like this is, probably one of the most likely entities to be doing that kind of work.
Yeah, but another idea is as we mentioned, I think a couple of weeks ago or last week even, there might be a lot more that goes into gathering that type of money for these types of things. Like, it might seem really easy in our heads, but there might be a lot more into it, saying like, yes, we want to take this money and we want to give it to a given institution, similar to the student debt story that we covered, right? Like, it might seem easy on the surface, but there might actually be a lot more like legal disputes here and there for financial stuff, whatever, that we're not aware of, and maybe we're not righteous to, because we're college students. Why would we have to know about that stuff? So I mean, I'm pretty sure. I mean, we read last week or a couple weeks ago, President Capel announced 1.5 million going towards the village as from as like they were doing the repairs and with the robbery that went on. So that's an example of doing like good with that money. But how do we know like what went into gathering that? We don't.
Yeah, of course. And I think that some transparency there into the decision making and
Exactly, yeah,
is absolutely essential. And speaking of decision making, we also got the news recently that Science Hall here at Montclair State was renamed to Irvin D. Reed Hall. Science Hall here, he served from 1989 to 1997 and ushered in important changes at Montclair, including lobbying for the state to elevate it from college to university status in 1994, laying the groundwork for its evolution to a doctoral research institution. The Montclair State University Board of Trustees recently passed a resolution to rename the building, citing Olive Reed's accomplishments as president. Many are still a part of campus life, such as a global education, the Academic Success Center, expansion of the honors program, the computerization of campus, and implementation of a strategic plan to improve all facets of the student experience. He was also involved in building Yogi Berra Stadium and the ice arena on campus.
And I think this ties back to the story we mentioned before a little bit,
Right.
because one of the students I was talking with said she's a biology major, right?
Mhm.
And the science hall itself, she said she really wishes could receive some renovations
Yeah,
because it's really small and some of the things that are
it is a
outdated.
smaller building.
So this is, I think, an example of that, even if it's just like showing a little bit of attention regarding its name,
Mhm.
because that could lead to better innovation in the future. Like if we're going to
Yeah.
honor this man who is president and all the great things that he brought to campus or that he built the foundation of, like with the Yogi Berra Stadium and ice arena,
Mhm.
that could lead the way, like within time, of course, not right away, but within time, to really bring those innovations that a lot of students care about. And it's good to honor him too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like that's another thing, right? Like there are so many like little boroughs on campus. Like, of course, like I don't know what the science like that is interesting. And I have been in those in some of those buildings, and they are a bit smaller than you would think and a bit older, right?
Yeah. Look at Dixon Hall.
Oh yeah, like Dixon Hall is like walking in Dixon Hall is like going back in time to 1973.
Yeah. Yeah. And our producer also said that the Science Hall, or Reed Hall, as it's going to be named, is connected to Richardson Hall.
Okay.
So, that's also, and it's that building itself is like they're interconnected, so it's a lot bigger. So that might lead to other innovations in that building as well.
Yeah, no, we can only hope and wait and see.
Yeah.
We are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we are going to have a interview with Aisha Hamlin, a second grade teacher at George Washington Carver Elementary School in Newark. So please stick around if you feel so inclined. It on Zoom. Like I said, you're listening to 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair. And joining with us this morning is Miss Aisha Hamlin. She is a second grade teacher at George Washington Carver Elementary School in Newark. She was also part of the Newark Teacher Project. Aisha, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and so here on the show, we've had other interviewees and, us ourselves saying that Black history shouldn't just be taught for the month of February, but for the entire 365 days of the year. We've even sat down with our Black and Latino group on campus, the Brotherhood, and they've said that Black history is American history. And we wanted to hear about how that resonated with you and your classroom, and how, because this is the last day of February, right? And how that resonates.
Right. So majority of my students in my class are African American. Therefore, for me, it's important for them to know that they're making history right now. It's not just history that's from the past. It's also
Yeah.
history that's going on right now. And that, February isn't the only month to shine light on Black people, which is really important for students to know now, because even when we were in school, we only were really taught Black history, I know for me, only during the month of February. And it was always the same people: Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Harriet Tubman, which they're amazing activists. And it's important that we know that, but it's also important that we know about the activists that are going on right now. So I try my best that every aspect of my teaching reflects the interest of my students. So whether it's cultural or personal, like I want my students to make that connection and resonate with people that we learn about, not just the standard people, but the people who are not really spoken about, the authors, the scientists, the athletes, the people that are doing things right now in live real time, and not just only the people from the past.
Sure, and Ms. Hamlin, our education system is generally shifting in and itself. So, what does a change like this mean for our general education system, and what should it look like?
When you talk about the shift and like makeover, because I heard that word a lot, like our education like is in a makeover kind of stage. When you think of makeover, you think of transforming and remodeling something. So I think that remodeling has to focus on other things. So what are we teaching? Why are we teaching? What are we teaching? How are we teaching? Who is teaching what we're teaching? Before we even start the makeover, we have to kind of establish these questions to guide our next action steps. Are we teaching things that are just straight from the curriculum? Are we diving outside of the curriculum and kind of like immersing ourselves into real life problem solving and having our children make that connection to real life things, not just things that's in a textbook? So I think we need to establish those things in order for a shift to happen in education. So kind of like a self-reflection of what we have to do to make it better.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of a reestablishing of the core values that the kind of guide education and what it's for. And I think that's so important, especially with young people. You teach second grade, so we're talking about 7 and 8-year-olds. What's it like to be kind of shaping young minds and educating them about Black history?
Yeah, so I actually teach both second and third grade.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I teach both, and it's in a special education classroom. So it's difficult. It's difficult yet rewarding at the same time, because one, you're shaping young minds in general is a difficult task, especially when it comes to Black history, because you notice that a lot of these children of color don't know what Black history is. They don't understand what it is. They really have no concept of, the phrase Black history.
Right.
Which is sad coming from students of color, but the rewarding aspect is introducing this part of history where the students have like fresh eyes looking at it. The students are able to have authentic reactions and authentic feelings to what's happening and what's continuing now. So I kind of don't look at it so much as a bad thing, more so they're able to have an actual authentic feeling.
Right.
Nobody is really in their ear telling them, you have to feel this way, you have to feel that way. They're having their own feeling right there in the moment in real life time. So it's hard, because they don't understand and they're so young and it's so complex. Like it's not just, black and white. It's very, very complex. But I try to make it, fun as much as I can. I try to have them kind of act out situations so that they can understand. So I kind of put them in history real quick in my classroom so that they can act it out, so they can just try to grasp the concept of what everything means. But it is hard. It's hard, but it's really rewarding, especially when that light bulb goes off and they get it. It's worth it.
And speaking about this idea of bringing authenticity and bringing new ideas to your classroom, what personally drove you to be a teacher and have this curriculum in your classrooms?
I've always loved working with young kids, but the program at Montclair, the Newark Teacher Project, which I was a part
Mhm.
of, I'm also part of the Transformative Education Network.
Mhm.
They brought in so much information about how important it is to incorporate social justice in the classroom. There's a huge deficit in education, which we're all aware of. And a
Mhm.
lot of foundational work starts in the younger grades. So I was immediately I want to be in the younger grades because that's where it starts. So if we as teachers create a solid foundation in the earlier grades, then our students will continue to move up grades and striving in each grade that they're in. So a part of that has to do, in my opinion, with classroom culture in the classroom. Like
Mhm.
it's imperative that you get to know your students. And what
Mhm.
easy way to do that than incorporating students' cultures and personal interests in the
Mhm.
curriculum, even if it's just something small. I reference TikTok all the time and they love it. I reference
Yeah.
basketball or, oh my
Mhm.
God, you saw the Super Bowl and all this, and
Mm.
just little things like that. Like, wow, did you see that football player? He looks just
Mhm.
like you. You guys
Mm.
look just alike, you know?
Yeah.
So you think about social justice curriculum and, sometimes you automatically think like you have to talk about always the injustices in America
Mhm.
24/7. Like, yes, that's a great thing to expose to children to what's going on around them, but it's better to allow students to make those connections themselves.
Mhm.
So something I started doing, during my first year of teaching was creating an affirmation wall. Something so simple. I have a mirror
Yeah.
every morning. They have to go into the mirror and they have to say affirmations about themselves. They have to affirm themselves before we start the day. So that to me is Black history. That to me is social justice right there.
Mhm.
When I was in school, there was not a lot of African American, children in my school. Therefore, representation was lost. So I want my students to have representation in our classroom, especially since they spend most of their time in the classroom anyways.
Mm.
Yeah, right. I think that's that's so perfect because it's all about like at the end of the day, like the human connection between the teacher and
Right,
the student. And I also really loved what you said about like letting them like the fresh set of eyes feel what they're going to feel about
right,
the material being presented, whether it's good or bad.
right, exactly. It's important. They have to have their own opinion for things.
Mhm.
That's how they'll learn when they have their own opinion.
Yeah, and it gives us such like insight into the kind of challenges you face because like there's so much context to understand, like to even understand like Black history as to understand like why that's even a term. You need to kind
Right.
of understand the whole history of, you know,
Exactly. Like where
all
it
of it.
started, all of that. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, well, this might be the last day of Black History Month, but it's far from the last day of representation and equality. Thank you so much for your time this morning
That's right. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for
Thank you,
having
Miss
me.
Hamlin. Have a great day.
You too.
as well. You're listening to 90.3 WMSE Upper Montclair. You just heard an interview with Miss Aisha Hamlin, second grade teacher at George Washington Carver Elementary School in Newark. We are going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with some more stories.
Mm.
Hey, you're listening to WMSC Upper Montclair 90.3
You're listening to 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair, and this is the Morning Buzz. I'm your host, Jake Goetz, joined by co-host Aidan Ivers and a whole bunch of awesome people in Zoom, including but not limited to Emil McCormack.
Howdy, I am Emo.
And I can't hear Emil.
lovely.
You
This is
can't
so
hear
sad.
Emo?
Oh,
Now
there we
I
go.
can.
Yay.
Hi
Press of a
guys.
button.
Good morning,
Emo's there.
Streaks.
Good morning. I understand we just heard Hills of Fire by Sarah Kinsley, but I understand you have also a lot of tunes info.
Oh yes, of course. Every week I'm here with all info on tunes, specifically Tunes on Tuesday, which is our weekly new music show with interviews conducted by the music team here at WMSC. This week's interview is with Miss Velvet, interviewed by music team member Brendan Matos. Miss Velvet speaks about her latest project titled Lovin' in the Afternoon, which was released in preparation for Valentine's Day, and talks about the process behind writing and producing the song. She speaks about her classic rock inspirations, her philosophy on love and female empowerment. She also talks about the shift from touring with a band versus performing solo nowadays, and the process of making her first solo album, Trailblazer, which is a 10-track album, which Miss Velvet said we can anticipate sometime in the summer. Her latest record is motivated by balancing being a rock star and exploring motherhood, having 2 kids since the pandemic began. During this time, she also experienced a cultural shift between moving from New York to live her California dream with her husband. She celebrates the idea of being a mother and a performer, and the double standards in the music industry and the hardships that come with playing both roles. New music from Miss Velvet and more on Tunes on Tuesday, which airs at 2 a.m. and 6 p.m. You can listen in for new music and good vibes. And if you've missed our latest episodes, no need to worry. All episodes of the show are available on our website, wmscradio.com.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Emo. The story behind Miss Velvet. I can't imagine, honestly, like how difficult it is to be a touring musician and raise a family at the same time.
Yeah, that does not compute for me.
Oh my goodness. You're always in the spotlight, but also have to step away from that.
That's some Hannah Montana stuff right there.
It's actually really interesting because she also mentions in the interview that a lot of the music industry, specifically the rock music industry, is dominated by males who don't
Sure.
have to deal with that same thing.
Mhm.
You know, they're also, of course they have kids of their own, but it's not quite the same.
Yeah.
And I know I went onto her Instagram and I saw a lot of photos that were kind of like posters looking kind of things, like photo shoots of the band. And I believe in a handful of them, she was actually pregnant in them. And I thought that
Wow.
was actually really cool because I feel like that's something that a lot of people might try to hide. Like they
Sure.
wouldn't try to do a photo shoot when they're visibly carrying a child. And I think that's I can't think of a good word that's safe for air, but I'm like, that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean,
Very, very
that
strong, you know?
she definitely has a right to protect that privacy of her life, and to choose to put that on full display, like on social media, really says something about Miss Velvet. So I'm glad that she's a part of our WMSC archives now. She's going to be.
Yes, for sure. I think she's definitely seems like a really cool artist, and I look forward to hearing more from her. And like I said, she teases that some more music will be coming in the coming months, and her debut solo album will be coming later on this year.
Hmm.
And so,
yeah.
speaking of tunes, in this part of the segment, I will also share the top songs in the adult alternative album chart according to iHeartRadio. This week, we have a little bit of all my silly little colors indicating that things are moving up and down and moving into the countdown. So I'm going to start at number 10 this week. Down 2 from last week is Pirate Radio by Gene Dawson. Number 9, debuting at number 9, is Hunger Site by Goose. Number 8, down 4 from last week, is I'm in Love with You by the 1975, which has been on the countdown for a long time. Number 7 is Madman's Eyes by Dave Matthews Band, up 2 from their upcoming album Walk Around the Moon, which will be here in May. Number 6, up 1 from last week, is Sex, Drugs, Etc. by Beach Weather. We can expect Pineapple Sunrise next month. Looking forward to that album. Number 5, in the same position from last week, is Runaway to Mars by Talk. Number 4, Tropic Morning News by The National, up 2. Number 3, unfortunately down 1, was number 1 weeks ago, is Off My Mind by Joe P. Number 2, up 1 from last week, is Pepper by Death Cab for Cutie off their album Asphalt Meadows. And number 1, of course, before I get into number 1, I have to give a moment of silence for the song that we lost this week because we had a debut at number 9. Unfortunately, This Is Why by Paramore is no longer in the top 10 of the AAA chart, despite the album of the same name coming out just a few weeks ago. Moment of silence for Paramore. And so number 1 this week, for the second week in a row, is Pages by White Reaper from their album Asking for a Ride, which came out just last month.
Yeah, definitely says something emo about Paramore. We mentioned before, I mentioned last week how the album that they released might not have lived up to the expectations that they hoped for. And this definitely adds to that idea because now they're out of the top 10.
Yes, I think it's interesting, and that means that that must be an opinion broader than just within our station, because I know often I talk a lot about this kind of music just within people who are around, because obviously I talk about music a lot.
Yeah.
And we've had music meetings and everyone's just kind of so on that album. I will say, since the Morning Buzz last week, I listened through the album a couple more times. It's pretty all right. I know This Is Why I'll still say the title track is probably my favorite,
Yeah.
but it certainly is interesting that you see other albums that, if something's been released, a new song will come in. I know not on this chart, but on Alt Nation's chart, The Loneliest by Måneskin was doing pretty well. And then around when their album Rush came out, another song called Gossip got into the countdown, and they don't have doubles. So if 2 songs are worthy of being in their top 18, they will kick the other one temporarily. And since the album's release in the last month or so, the 2 songs have been going back and forth, as in that means that the 2 are so popular and
Wow.
They're
like
fighting.
following the
They're
exactly.
jousting.
Exactly, that's what they're doing. Whereas here, it's interesting to see that the song has been dropping. However, they also have their latest single. So after an album is released, often bands will create a single from the new pool of songs. And Running Out of Time is their new single for Paramore. And it's been doing pretty decent on some other charts, but according to iHeartRadio, not so much. So I will definitely be keeping track of what this means for Paramore and the album that people do generally think is so.
So, do you know, Emil, if Paramore is going to announce like tours this summer at all?
I don't believe I have any tour information for Paramore,
It
but
would
I
certainly
will.
make sense, but
I feel like
we're
they
not there
will.
yet.
I feel like they will.
It looks like right now they have a couple of dates kind of sporadic. They have, some shows in Britain, and they have I guess a couple of festivals I'm looking at for the summer. So I feel like we probably aren't doing expect a North American tour during the summer because of these dates, but
Sure.
the fall I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
In
It's-
totally other news, I will say that one of my favorite artists, Grandson, released a song last night.
Yes, of
and we are
course.
looking forward to possibly a tour announcement within the next week for him. So not Paramore, but some tour announcements on their way.
And I understand that you have some opinions about this song that you shared on the website.
Yes, I did. So Grandson's song came out at midnight, and by 12:30, I already had my review on the website because I was just so excited for it. Grandson delivered, I will say that for sure. And I'm so excited. I'm smiling right now. He's one of my favorite artists ever. And the tour announcement, I told my mom he's going on tour, and she's like, "No, Emily, we're going to too many shows, but like we gotta go." And I'm hoping, that he brings along like some really epic openers, and his shows just make me smile so much. He just has an energy about him that is so cool. The other artist that I'll like compare it to is like Youngblood.
Okay.
There's just this like motivation behind the music, and they're so passionate about it that seeing them live is just absolutely outstanding. So I hope Grandson announces a tour very close to me on a convenient day, and who knows that we might have more Paramore info. I know actually in touring news, Weezer just announced that they are going to be going on tour. I want
Yes,
to
of course,
say
with a pretty sick lineup too, right?
a really sick lineup. One thing I will complain about though is they're bringing about a lot of openers, but they're only bringing 2 per show, meaning that they're kind of trading off, which is interesting. I noticed that a lot of bands have been kind of taking that approach, but I will say that Weezer will be going on their indie rock road trip tour starting in June. They'll be in the New York, New Jersey area at Forest Hill Stadium on July 13th in Queens, as well as the TD Pavilion at the Man in Philly. Bringing to those 2 shows specifically Future Island and Joyce Manor, and other dates include openers such as Modest Mouse, Spoon, Mama, and Countdown Frequent White Reaper. Pages obviously doing really well on this countdown. Records by Weezer doing really well on the rock alternative chart. So that looks like a truly incredible lineup for this summer.
Yeah.
So, well, you mentioned before that you and your mom have a lot of concerts planned. How
Mhm.
many exactly do you have planned with them?
How many? Oh
Oh
no.
no.
Mom,
Do we
help
want
me
to
out with
put
this
emo
one.
on the spot like this?
We're
you have to
going
know, right? It's a
Oh,
big investment.
Well, I do have my mom is saying that Paramore is touring. And
Oh,
they'll be at Madison Square Garden on May 30th and 31st.
okay.
So thank you, Mom. Off the top of my head, I can't say that I know how many I'm going to, but I do know my next concert, I am going to see Muse open by Evanescence on March
Oh
17th.
my goodness.
I'm really looking
Evanescence
forward
is
to
Oh my
that.
goodness.
My emo heart is so
Mm.
excited.
Wow. So wait, Evanescence is opening for the band Muse?
Yes.
That's pretty sick.
Right.
How big? I've never heard of that band. How big are they?
Which one?
Muse.
Oh, Muse, I believe. Not a band I'm super familiar, but
Oh.
they're big, right?
That's something.
Muse.
They're like classic rock. Like, I don't
Muse,
know.
actually, fun fact, is one of the top artists played at the station, despite us not particularly motivating it towards that. But no, Muse
One
is
of the ghosts of WMSC past.
exactly.
Still,
Yeah. Okay.
having
I
an
would
influence.
say that they're still pretty iconic. If I'm looking at Spotify, they have about 12,600,000 monthly
Wow.
listeners.
That's some numbers.
So that is a pretty pretty big number. And oh yes. Hi mom. My mom said at least 10 concerts so
My
far,
goodness.
excluding grandson, and one of them does include Depeche Mode. We're gonna see in a couple months now.
Wow.
You're wild for that.
I'm wild for that, but if I do anything in my life, it's drop everything for concerts, and I'm not ashamed of it.
Well, I certainly hope that
Nor
you and
should
your
you
mom
be.
enjoy going to your 10 concerts.
Yes, and hopefully you will see a lot of reviews on the website, and certainly I'll be talking about it during my segment here on the Morning Buzz.
Wow. I mean, I wish I could go to that many concerts in a given time frame. So,
Yeah.
it's something to cherish.
No, absolutely. It really is.
I really enjoy them, and I'm really grateful for the chance that I have to see as many shows as I do. And I will say that if anyone is interested in seeing a lot of concerts, I'd certainly recommend, go to local shows. Those are where it's at. Those are really fun, usually really cheap, or they don't even cost anything to go, just your appreciation to local bands. Because if you think about it, no band would be able to sell out Madison Square Garden if you didn't start going to see them at the Meat Locker.
Oh,
That's
true.
where it all begins.
Yeah,
And
and of course, there's also on our website some giveaways at some point, right?
There are always giveaways, some to come very soon, question mark.
Quite possibly.
And I can verify looking at the Paramore website that I did a little oopsie, and they are in fact going to Madison Square Garden the end of May, and it seems like there's a handful of other dates going on there, and then they're also at the Boston Calling Festival, which isn't really close, but I know that they got an interesting lineup going on there. That is May 28th.
Okay, and that's not one of the 10 concerts that you're going to, right? That's not one of the 10 ones.
No, I am not going to that.
Considering you just found out about it now.
Just, oh, look at it. I'm gonna go.
I'm
No,
sending it right now.
My mom's still giving me updates on, of course, I am seeing Fall Out Boy in the summer.
Very
That is
nice.
going to be
Where is that?
outstanding.
Where's that going to be, Emil?
I want to say I'm going to PNC Bank Arts Center
Wow.
in Homedale.
Yeah.
I believe there also is a Forest Hills date if anyone is
Mm.
interested. In Fall Out Boy, who's bringing along Bring Me the Horizon and Royal and the Serpent, two other
Wow.
bands that I am obsessed with. Actually saw Royal and the Serpent open for Grandson, so very, very good day for music, you know?
Yeah,
Good year. Good
absolutely.
year as well.
And since it's the morning and it's not really concert hour right now, we can keep listening to the radio. And here is 11 in the afternoon, our Tunes and Tuesday desk, which will air at 10 a.m. today. Miss Velvet, 11 in the afternoon by Miss Velvet. whole host of individuals on Zoom. Guys, speak to me from the void. How are you guys doing? Someone,
good.
anyone?
Doing good. You know, living,
Yep.
loving.
I'm
vibing.
also doing good.
I'm so glad to hear it. Before we get into the craziness of hour 2, Julius 11, do we get a newscast?
Yes, we do. Alrighty. Like he said, I'm Julia Slevin, and this is WMSC News. So for our top story, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed a bill on Monday stripping Disney of its longtime self-governing status. For nearly over 50 years, the area surrounding Walt Disney World has had its own governing and creating its own development plan. This bill is in response to last year when the Disney company spoke out about the Don't Say Gay bill, which restricted what public schools are able to teach about sexual orientation and gender identity. Now, moving on to national story, the Biden administration is giving federal agencies 30 days to ensure they do not have the app TikTok on any federal devices. Sources say this ban is for cybersecurity reasons and the fear of data falling into the wrong hands. Employees cannot have the app downloaded on any government devices and are strongly encouraged to delete the app in general. Moving on to local news, Mercer County Sheriff officer was arrested Friday for pointing a handgun at a woman's head and threatening to kill her. Matthew Sickler, 35, remains in Ocean County Jail Monday. He is charged with aggravated assault, making terroristic threats, eluding and restricting arrest, and possession of a weapon for unlawful purposes, authorities say. Some Montclair news. Montclair public high schools and elementary schools are having a delayed opening today, February 28th, due to the snowy and rainy weather. Speaking of weather, keep watching out for the winter storm that is in effect until 1 p.m. today. We are seeing the result of last night's snow showers mixing with some rain. Today is a high of 38 degrees, but it feels around 25. Be careful driving and bundle up on this chilly Tuesday. Tomorrow and Thursday should be clear with some pockets of sunshine and some clouds. No snow is in the forecast for tomorrow or Thursday, but rain is expected Thursday morning. And for WMSC News, I'm Julia Slevin. Back to you, Jake.
Thank you so much, Julia. And now here's George Calasia with your sportscast.
All right. For the NFL, the Washington Commanders have released quarterback Carson Wentz. This move creates $26 million in cap space for the Commanders. And with NFL free agency approaching, this opens up some spending money for them. In the NBA, Los Angeles Lakers superstar LeBron James is set to miss multiple weeks due to a foot injury. Reports say that there is no timetable for LeBron's return to the court. In another injury, Charlotte Hornets guard LaMelo Ball suffered a fractured ankle in last night's game against the Pistons. Again, there is no timetable for LaMelo's return to the court. For the NHL trade deadline continues with some more big trades. The Toronto Maple Leafs have acquired Sam Lafferty, Jake McCabe, a 2024 conditional fifth-round pick, and a 2025 conditional fifth-round pick from the Chicago Blackhawks in exchange for a 2025 first-round pick, a 2026 second-round pick, and players Joey Anderson and Pavel Gogolev. And for MSU sports, the Montclair State University men's basketball team have clinched a spot in the NCAA Men's Division III tournament. They are set to play Hamilton College in Baltimore on Friday. Congratulations to the men's basketball team. This has been George Calasia with your WMSC Sportscast.
Thank you so much, George. And now, with all that done with, we can get into hour 2. We got a lot to talk about. First, one of my favorite segments we do here on the Buzz. Am I in the wrong? Are we ready to judge people, Aiden?
I think we are. What about you guys on Zoom? Are we ready to
Zoom,
judge people? The
ready
people
to-
that read it?
Ready to be judged? Ready to be a moral authority?
I'm ready.
All right. So this is our segment, Am I in the Wrong? As we this is stories we get from Reddit. People who have done things and are kind of wondering, should I have done that? Was that wrong? And coming to Reddit to counsel themselves. These are not stories that we've experienced. They're just random strangers on the internet. But with that, here's our first Am I in the Wrong individual. Am I in the wrong for telling my daughter she was being a brat after she cried about blowing out her birthday candles. So from the headline, what are we thinking?
No, because that's what you're supposed to do on your birthday.
I'm just confused. I feel like it's hard to judge from this headline just because I don't know why she was crying
Crying
and blowing
after-
out her birthday candles.
I don't know. Maybe it's because she's like, I don't know.
Maybe her
I'm
wish
trying
to
to
come true.
imagine reason. Yeah, maybe the wish, but like, did she think it was just gonna happen immediately?
I mean, it
Like,
doesn't
I
have,
want a pony,
no.
and the pony would just like poof.
It's not like a
Right,
genie
yeah.
there. I
Right.
don't
It's not Fairly Odd Parents.
know.
Yeah, it's not how.
That's not how it
I
works.
don't know. All right,
Mm.
so let's find out. Let's dive into the text of this. Am I in the wrong? I have 4 kids, 23, 20, 16, and 13. This concerns my oldest. I'll refer to her as Brianna. So this is a 23-year-old. We don't normally do big parties in our family after the double digits, like 18, 21st, around there. But Brianna has been going through a bit of a difficult time, so we've decided to throw her a surprise party. This was yesterday. It was a big family party, and Brianna was enjoying it. Then the cake was brought out. I have a lot of young nieces and nephews, so naturally they wanted to stand with Brianna, and she had no issue. When she went to blow out the candles, my 5-year-old niece blew most of them out before her. Everyone laughed it off. My youngest actually put 23 candles on the cake, and there were still a few lit, so I told Brianna to blow those out. She did, but she looked angry and started crying. She then walked off. After that, it got quite awkward. I wonder if this is another British and the am I in the wrong? And my sister, niece's mom, got upset / embarrassed that her daughter is a kid and didn't mean to do it. She didn't think Brianna would act like this. We all calmed her down that it was not her fault. I talked to Brianna and told her that she was being a selfish brat and making a scene. She's 23 and getting mad about birthday candles. She was still upset, and my other kids are telling me I wasn't being fair. Am I in the wrong?
Well, I think this relates to little kids being immature, and at the same time, though, I mean, it is a place and time where one person is all the attention's on this one person. So it does. I can see like how awkward it can be if a little kid like steals a spotlight by blowing out her candles. But maybe that shouldn't ruin the experience for everybody there. Sure, like you can be upset at the little kid, but like that's a little kid. What do you expect? They're not really mature,
Yeah. Zoom, what do we think about this?
I feel like this is a little dramatic because it's like it's just candles and it's really not that deep. We could just light them again, and like it's not like she ripped open someone's gift or like knocked the cake over or something like that. Like we could just relight them and re-sing,
That's my thing. Why didn't you relight them? Right? Like it's like, okay, like the kid's dumb, like he's doing whatever. But to just say, okay, it doesn't matter, because like I don't know. It's odd. I'm actually very torn because like a part of me, there's 2 wolves inside me. There's one that says you're an adult and you should not care about any of this stuff. So like any reaction to this is just like bad. But also I feel like it's a very like inhuman kind of disposition to take.
Yeah.
In a way, because like I don't know, when someone throws you a birthday party, it's kind of nice, right?
Sure.
Or at least I imagine it is.
And I mean, like, I guess now I think about it, it's like, when talking to this little kid, you could show them some humanity and saying,
Yeah.
You're gonna be in my position someday. You're gonna be an adult. You're in for a rude awakening.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe this person just like wasn't ready to grow up, and it's like that's a thing for her.
But you're 23 though.
Yeah, right. And it's like that's also like where I'm kind of at, where it's like, yeah, like I know growing up is tough and stuff, but at a certain point, you need to kind of like take responsibility for that and take responsibility for your own kind of, I don't know, even the things that kind of get you down a bit. So like, I don't know. I'm really interested to hear more opinions about this.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
sorry, you can go, Josh, you go.
I mean, I could see where she's coming from, but It's just one of those things where I kind of agree with what Aiden was saying, where all the attention is on that one person. It's like it's for her.
Mhm.
You get this 5-year-old just stealing the spotlight. I mean, as kids do, I've had parties in which kids have blown out my candles and then cry about it.
Really,
But
that's a very specific experience to have.
That
yeah,
is- that is-
no, it's happened. It's happened to me. But like they said, she was going through a difficult time in her life, so they wanted to do something nice for her. And then we got this
Yeah.
5-year-old blowing out the candles, and then you're like, "Why are you crying?" Like it's just candles, but you threw the party
Alright.
for her. So I'm-
Yeah. Well, let's stick with the script here, right? So we're judging if it was wrong for the father to tell her that she was being a selfish brat and making a scene in response to
I
how,
do think that escalated a little bit,
right?
Yeah.
because like at the end of the day, like it's still her birthday. So like if she wants
Mhm.
to cry on her birthday and like be upset about the candles, like there's like one day out of the year that you're allowed to pull that card and be upset. And I feel like that was for one day pass. And he was like, nope, you're a brat. Like,
I also think that this is very clearly like, because like I don't know, it's like it's very like I think it's sometimes very easy to focus on the kind of explicit irrationality of someone's actions, like right, like clearly like crying because a 5-year-old blew out your candles is like it's like okay, it's a 5-year-old, but I don't know. There's clearly something deeper going on that's bothering her. Like I think to focus on that and be like, but it's a 5-year-old, like
Yeah.
it's like you're missing the point. Like there's definitely something else going on. And I feel like the father kind of had an opportunity to kind of be like, hey, like what's up? Like what's bothering you? There's clearly something more going on here. But instead he was like, shut up, you selfish brat.
I mean,
And I don't know. I think that's wrong.
at the same time, Jake, it's like maybe he didn't want to. Maybe he felt like he was embarrassed in front of his family, because there's a
Yeah.
bunch of family there, and to see like,
I think that makes it worse.
yeah, to
Right?
see like the 23-year-old like in distress,
Yeah.
like,
Like, shut up, stop crying. You're making me look bad.
yeah, that kind of thing, that kind of idea, which is also like not the right way to handle it. I wouldn't say,
Yeah.
but
I don't know. Does anyone yeah.
I would have to say that I agree with the latest thing that you said, Jake,
Mm.
where I feel like clearly there's a lot more happening. But even still, it's like, I don't know. I feel like I'm really an emotional person too. So I kind of sympathize with Brianna. I feel like, that's upsetting. But
Mhm.
she also just kind of walked away, didn't necessarily make a scene from what I could gather
That's
from
true.
here, just kind of like walked it off. And I feel like I've done the same where, like, if I'm upset, if it's a thing that I'm justified for, if I'm not justified, it's like, okay, I'm gonna leave. I'm just
Yeah, removing
deal
yourself
with
from the
it by
situation.
myself. And I feel like almost the person who posted made a bigger deal out of something that honestly, what's most important is this is a 5-year-old. They're probably not gonna remember this moment. And if they do, it's such an insignificant thing. So I will personally say that I think that the poster is in the wrong for this, and I hope Brianna's all right.
Yes, I agree. Does anyone else does anyone disagree with this poster being in the wrong?
no, I think it's wrong.
yeah, I mean, I can't really
I agree with Emil that the poster's in the wrong.
All right,
Same with
let's
me, yeah,
see
same.
if Reddit agrees, and it looks like they do.
in the wrong.
Yeah, and I don't think that's surprising. I think I don't know. Awesome, great moral authority.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and as Emil said, hopefully Brianna like moves on, from
yes,
from this place of
mhm,
maybe internal hardship that she's going through.
right. I hope she finds someone she could talk to.
Yeah.
All right, and we can
Well-
move into our next story.
Yeah. Speaking of talking different types of communication, am I in the wrong for kicking a girl out of my party for calling her boyfriend daddy?
Yes. Actually, no. I don't think you're in the wrong for that.
All right. Well, let's dive into it a little bit more. I, 24 female, was hosting a small scale hangout with about 15 friends. One girl, also 23, is an acquaintance of mine. She came with a boyfriend. We were sitting around in the main room and eating pizza when she came to sit and sat on her boyfriend's lap. A little weird since there were open seats, but I didn't say anything. While we were talking as a group, she would always refer to her boyfriend as Daddy. She would interject with things like, quote, Daddy has just brought me a new stand mixer. And quote, Daddy looks so handsome in this shirt, right? I told him to get it. At first, we thought she was joking or messing with us, but she continued doing it. And the rest of us were side-eyeing each other and were kind of uncomfortable. I asked her if she could save the pet names for her home, because some of us were feeling uncomfortable. She got upset and told me to stop making such a big deal over a nickname and shaming her. I told her that wasn't my intention at all, but I would appreciate it if she could stop because it was killing the vibe. She started ranting at me about a whole lot of stuff. I just told her and her boyfriend to please leave. Her boyfriend was mad too, but they eventually got out. And for the rest of the evening was less uncomfortable and way more peaceful. A few of my friends who didn't know the girl I kicked out thanked me for making her leave. But we all felt kind of awkward because of what happened. Am I in the wrong?
Wow. I wanted to quote Emil McCormack, who said, I think we're in the wrong for covering this. No, but this is actually a very funny story. And like I don't think this person's in the wrong. I feel like this is pretty cut and dry for me. That
Okay.
like if you're gonna be weird like that, like I don't know. I guess like I don't know, it's 2023 and it's like
I mean,
what like the definition of like what is weird and what is I guess kind of
sure.
it is very fluid and it's always changing. But I do think you have to still consider where you are, relationship you have with the
Yeah.
people around you, and what other people are comfortable with. And like I don't know, in some ways, I don't know. That's what I got.
I mean, definitely, Jake. There are some things, that are meant for a realm of privacy, I guess you could say. And I'm sure, like, if we were in our classes and somebody raised their hand and, they said, well, yeah, Daddy over here has just been giving me the notes, and it's been really helpful. It's been really helpful because, I'm not really paying attention. So, it's really helping me out. That is really helping me out. And if that was said out loud, that would create a sense of like in people's heads, like,
Yeah.
what did that person just say?
Mhm.
So, yeah, I wouldn't say. Again, people have their own ways of life.
Yeah.
They have like they have a sense of like belonging with each other and
Right.
what people are comfortable with. But
Mhm.
that's not. It's a very broad spectrum of what that is for everybody, and it
Mhm.
might not be the case for people calling their significant others daddy in the place of others.
Yeah. Zoom, how we doing here?
No, we're not doing.
Yeah, I also agree. I think I'm floored. I also think that Aiden narrated that like so seriously, and I just really couldn't handle it. Like most of the time, I was like, "Oh my gosh, it was a lot." I think it was a great job the way you said
Oh,
it,
thank you, Julia.
but I
Thank you.
think it made it seem so much worse. Like it was bad to begin with, but then it just took it to another level of like, "Oh my gosh." Yeah, that
Ooh.
PDA is a lot to begin with, but I think when you're in front of a group of friends and then someone's saying stuff like that, you're like, oh, it just gets
Well,
worse.
yeah, well, they want.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But here's actually okay. I'm gonna introduce nuance into the situation.
Mhm.
So like, homies were being cringe. It happens.
Sure.
Graphic displays of straightness. It's tough, but you get through it. Sometimes,
Mhm.
but they did kick them out. Like they were like say like okay, go.
Yeah.
And I think that this was after, I think a more polite kind of confrontation of like, like, hey, this is kind of weird, like maybe making us uncomfortable, stop. But eventually it did escalate to get out of my house.
I just can't even imagine the first and secondhand embarrassment from that. Like the way
Yeah, right.
they would have to exit and leave, but everybody else has to sit there and be like, all right, see you later.
Yeah, I mean,
They got a bunk.
yeah, and that
Yeah.
and in that regard, it kind of takes that sense of
Mhm.
negativity for them out of their lives, because probably we can infer that these people probably did not they probably burned some bridges after this, right? They didn't they
It'd
probably
be
make a
hard
leap.
to like, I don't know, invite someone back
Yeah,
after
I mean,
having to.
we can imagine like a person leaving and they say, you know what? Let's go, daddy. Let's get out of here. Find some more people. Find some better people.
Find some people who don't mind God. All right. I think I need to know what Reddit thought about this. So I'm just gonna say I think we're all in agreement that this person, the poster, is not in the wrong.
Yes.
Sure. I mean,
Get them out.
not in the wrong.
And
Okay.
of course Reddit
Good.
agrees.
Good.
All right, not in the wrong.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me that Redditors are not super big fans of PDA. Just yeah.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully they can find some people. I mean, no doubt there are communities, there are groups of people who do appreciate those things, like in public, in public hangouts. So, I mean, I guess we could say hopefully that hopefully they can refer to themselves as mommy and daddy in other places.
Yep. Yeah, in spaces. You know what? Yeah, I agree. I hope that everyone finds a space where they can say whatever weird stuff they want
And not
without making
yeah.
other people uncomfortable. And so I hope everyone involved in the story gets that. We're gonna jump to a quick break and then we're gonna get into some entertainment stories.
Yay.
unmuted. That's why. Yes. Okay. Now, can the Zoom homies hear me?
Good.
All right.
Good.
Indeed.
Joined by newscaster. Doing a little roll call, y'all.
Oh, I didn't. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
No worries.
I'm Julia Slevin.
And sportscaster
George Calicia.
and Tunes on Tuesday segment host.
And me mole.
Yeah, this is the crew. All right, and we're gonna jump into some entertainment news. Yeah,
Sure.
you want to start us off?
Of course. According to standard.co.uk, Youngblood says he will provide a mental health safe space for fans on tour. Youngblood has revealed he will be playing new music on tour along with introducing increased safety measures for fans. The 25-year-old rock musician, whose real name is Dominic Harrison, kicked off Youngblood, the world tour, at Cardiff International Arena last Thursday. As part of his series of gigs throughout the UK, Europe, and the US, he is offering specialist mental health support for fans attending his concerts. During the shows, a safe space, which will have qualified counselors alongside a help desk to answer any questions, will be available, and an email helpline outside the arenas will provide help. This is a really, I think, really cool implementation from a rock artist.
No, it's definitely a really interesting idea because I know like the thing about concerts is they are such great experiences, but they're very stimulating and like
Sure.
there's so much going on. And it's definitely not the great place to say like have a panic attack or feel sick or
Wow.
anything like that.
Yeah.
And to kind of have some sort of refuge in the event of something like that going down, I think is really important.
The way I like to think of it, Jake, is if you're standing there, I mean, depending on the size of the venue that
Right.
you're at, it's an intersection of people screaming and
Yeah.
loudspeakers in one volume, right?
Yep.
And that's really a weird way of putting it, but it makes sense because, it's a lot for our minds and our ears to handle. So personally, I always, my uncle taught me this: when you go to concerts, a really good idea is to bring earplugs.
Yes. No,
Earplugs.
that's something you
Because-
see a lot.
Yeah, because because normally we hear about people who lose their voice or ears
Mhm.
during concerts, but I noticed, and when you wear them, your hearing isn't lost like practically at all. Like there's no ringing in your ears for days on end.
Yeah.
It's not like you can't hear, you can't like be still in
No,
the
it
present
gets
moment.
very
It's still
stressful.
that I feel like that ties into that umbrella term of like taking care of your fans, because some people might not be used to those kinds of environments, as you said.
Yes, and I want to get Emo in on this because I know Emo, you're a Youngblood fan. I also know you're, as we discussed, you're an experienced concert goer. So I'm really interested to
Yes.
hear what you have to say about this, and also earplugs. What are your earplugs called?
Yeah, so Youngblood, I can't remember how many times I've seen him. I want to say 3 or 4, possibly. And I mentioned before that he's one of those standout artists that absolutely radiates great energy and passion on stage during his shows. And one thing that I did pick up on is that I've seen on his Instagram a lot, and obviously, as Aiden just read, that he was just playing in an arena. And the majority of the shows that I've seen him in were in pretty decently small venues in New York City. And so that means that he's certainly expanding and growing as an artist. I mean, the fact that he has millions of followers and he was still performing at like Webster Hall in New York is crazy to me. And so, to say the least, he's certainly expanding. He's playing arenas now, which means that he is playing in bigger venues that are certainly overwhelming to many. I could find small venues also a lot because it's just usually standing room and everyone's pretty squished, but at big ones there's so many people that you're dealing with. And I go to concerts pretty frequently, and I also just generally get anxiety on a daily basis when I'm with a lot of people. However, I found that concerts are kind of my safe space. I don't care how many people are there, as long as music's there, I'm okay. But I definitely recognize that that's not the same for everybody else. And so the fact that he is having specialists for mental health support at his concert really shows his character. And that's something that he's always promoted in his music. He's very much mental health oriented, very much making sure that people know that people are allowed to use your voices and your voices can be heard. And I feel like it's very on brand for Youngblood. And I'm
Mhm.
really glad to see that he is showing his genuine character and he's not just someone who says a couple lines in his music and doesn't genuinely mean that he's there for his fans. And so I'm really excited to hear this again, of course, as his fan base is expanding. That means that he's going to be playing at bigger venues. And, obviously crossing my fingers that some of these shows will be in the US sometime soon. All this being said as well, I've been to, if I can put a number on it, I believe 60 big concerts at this point in my life. And I
Wow.
will say
Jeez
that I've
Louise.
only really worn earplugs for maybe a quarter.
What?
And
I mean,
because
that's your.
I didn't really understand, I didn't know the concept of them for a very long time. And it wasn't until like the last year or so where I'm like, if I'm going to all
Yeah.
these concerts and I'm not stopping anytime soon, and I also want to go into editing, maybe my ears would be helpful.
No,
So
that's true,
so
because-
in my camera bag, I have 3 pairs of earplugs.
Mhm.
I found wait, I could go into my pocket right now, and I feel like I have my blue ones from the Happy Fit somewhere in here.
Mm.
And I would say I wish I found them a little bit sooner because I don't feel the long-term effects yet. But I'm only 21, and I feel like
Yeah.
if I don't continue using them for a while, then I'm just gonna mess up my ears.
No,
So
that's exactly right, Emo. That's something my uncle told me as well. Because he said as you go to these loud concerts more and more, without any protection for your ears, you could definitely it could definitely impact you when you're like say 50 years old, when you're mid-age, when you're middle aged.
Yep.
So I think that's a really smart idea that you could keep those in your bag, and
mhm.
just to like protect ourselves for the long run. If we want to have our healthy, protect our ears. It's a good idea.
Yeah, no, it's a scary thought, but the thing about those little hairs that pick up sound waves in your ears is when they die, they don't come back.
Yeah.
So
And if
yeah,
I still want to see Youngblood at 50 years old, which I plan on doing, I'm
yeah,
gonna wear those
absolutely.
earplugs.
Okay.
Jeez Louise. Awesome. And with that, we're gonna go into some quirky, not like the other girls' stories. The first the first one is Florida school employee was knocked unconscious after teen's Nintendo Switch was taken away. I'm sorry, but that goes hard.
Oh,
That,
no.
that goes really hard.
Oh no.
A 6'6". Wow.
Oh my gosh.
6'6".
Oh my gosh.
That is way taller than me. And I'm a tall guy. A 6'6" Florida high school pummeled a female school employee, leaving her unconscious after she confiscated his Nintendo Switch. The 17-year-old student weighs 270 pounds. The sheriff's office statement said, quote, "The student stated that he was upset because the victim took his Nintendo Switch away from him during class. Teen has been charged with felony aggravated battery with bodily harm and has been turned over to the Department of Juvenile Justice."
Now, although this is a Florida story, I can 100% imagine this happening in Staten Island
I
somewhere.
can imagine this happening anywhere.
Yeah, this is not only this doesn't feel like this is only based in like a limited to Florida itself, but this is really unfortunate. And I guess like I hope the school employee who took it away trying to
Right, yeah, I hope they're right.
let this kid concentrate in class. Hopefully they heal from any injuries, because this is not really unnecessary, and it kind of puts a bad impression on the school itself.
Yeah, and a bad impression on our generation. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. I really do worry about like I guess the iPad generation or iPad kids and what it like, I don't know, does kind of needing to have that access to that all the
Sure.
time. And I don't know. It's like our devices are like weird little appendages, and an attack
Yeah.
on them is like an attack on us.
And it's also an idea of like something I learned from my English teacher in high school is that there's a time for fun
Mhm.
and there's a time for work. And you
Yeah.
can't really intersect those two things because, it's not professional to do that. And, we can imagine the kid like in the, we said as he read Jake, the kid said he's upset because
Yeah.
he got his Switch taken away, and in his mind, it's probably like, I'm a gamer for life, man.
Mhm.
It's not my fault.
Yeah.
It's not a phase. So I mean,
I just want
hopefully,
to add, I think a really funny part of this is like he pummeled he pummeled her, like the way that it's said too. It's like he's literally like 6'6", 270 pounds. Like you couldn't just use your words. Like we had to take
Yeah.
it to the next level and like throw yourself to get the Switch back. You couldn't just say
Right.
like, hey.
Yeah, like that's what I'm talking about with like the psychological, I don't know, aspect of that.
Mhm.
Yeah, wow. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, and one of our members, Jake Joelle, said that she actually saw the videotape of what we were discussing, and it sounds like more than 6 people or around 6 people had to disrupt the altercation that went on, like the physical altercation between
Yeah.
the
I
female
mean,
employee and
6'6", 270 pounds sounds about right.
gosh.
Like that's a big guy. I would not.
Yeah. I mean,
Wow.
hopefully,
Honestly, God bless that teacher for even daring to like.
exactly.
I don't know.
That
I would have just said, "Play your Switch, dude."
She
no.
could have really lost a hand, like
No,
going
Yeah.
over and grabbing this Switch.
Oh,
Like,
that kind of, I think, shows an unsafe work environment because people
Yeah.
getting physical for taking away your Switch. Trying to play Mario Kart, man. Got to get those gold tires.
Yeah.
And that's like you can do that. We're not saying you can't do that, but there's a time and place for that. You don't do it in the middle of class.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you gotta grind for those things. Grind on Mario Kart. So we don't know what game you're playing, but
Yes.
uh,
Speaking of not mixing I guess rest and work. Aiden, can you
Sure.
discuss that next story?
okay, guys, some bad news. According to cybernews.com, sleeping in the office does not save your job.
That's crazy.
Senior executive Esther Crawford has been fired from Twitter despite famously sleeping on the office floor to meet Elon Musk's deadlines. Crawford's dedication to her job did not spare her from the company's latest round of layoffs. Crawford was one of the executives in charge of the Twitter Blue subscription service launched after Musk's takeover of the company. She caused some controversy in November when she posted a picture of herself sleeping on the office floor at work, just days after Twitter changed hands. She tweeted that at the time, quote, when your team is pushing around the clock to make deadlines, sometimes you hashtag sleep where you work.
What an L. That's so
Oh,
funny.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
no, like I don't know.
Yeah, this is definitely a lot of this stems from a lot of different I guess current events regarding
Yeah,
the $44 billion that Elon Musk spent
of course.
on paying for acquiring Twitter. And I mean, seems like he's implementing some deadlines that people might
Yeah.
have to sacrifice their travel over.
It's really interesting. Elon Musk has like a weird cult around him, and I don't know. It's very funny when I don't know, people are willing to really just go to bat for this
Sure.
billionaire.
Yeah.
And they're shocked when, he just kind of chews them up and spits them out.
I mean, yeah, I mean, at the to go off a sidetrack a little bit about this, there was an event last Thursday here at the SCM regarding misinformation
Right.
from featuring reporters from WNBC and Telemundo, and one of the people on stage was actually a professor of the SCM, Dr. Bolton, and he mentioned something about Twitter as it is now that Elon acquired it.
Yeah.
And he said like some cases of misinformation, have sparked in some statistics, right? And he's like, well, I mean, with these new policies, well, I mean, yeah, I mean, you read something and somebody has a blue check mark because they sell those now.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
it's like, well, it's
Bad
the
policy.
kind of if for a person who may not have the best media literacy,
Right.
that could by just that little blue thing.
Yeah,
they might show
no.
them like, well, maybe I can trust this person.
No, yeah, it's really interesting the amount of trust that's put into, those little things like that. Like, oh, there's a blue check mark by the name, they must be good. It's
Yeah.
putting so much trust into the programs, into the technology, and the systems,
Yeah.
to rely on huge movements.
And-
And
Oh, yeah.
yeah, oh man, I just realized. Okay,
Well, okay.
because I wanted to move into this other story,
Mhm.
about putting trust into technology and everything.
Sure.
The radical movement to worship AI as a new god.
Okay. All right.
So Mindar is a humanoid robot engineered by a team at Osaka University as the embodiment of Kannon, the Buddhist goddess of mercy.
Ooh.
Mindar is 6 feet 4 inches tall and weighs 132 pounds and has been preaching at a historic temple since 2019. It's designed to bridge the gap between traditional religious practices with the modern world. It marries emerging technologies like AI and robotics with centuries-old spiritualism. The infusion of religion and technology is nothing new. However, the sudden emergence and subsequent growth of AI in the past few years is taking the marriage of religion and tech to a whole new level.
Okay, so as somebody with a religious background,
Mhm.
this is really interesting to me
Yeah.
because something that this reminds me of is the idea of idolatry from a religious perspective.
Idolatry. Okay, yeah.
Idolatry, not adultery. Idolatry
Yeah.
is when people worship basically a false sense of a
Yeah,
god,
like
right?
the golden calf or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. And honestly, like I don't think this is. I mean, if I'm like in this Buddhist
Mhm.
community, right? This is really morbid. This is kind
Yeah.
of weird because as like when we think about religious aspects of religious
Mhm.
life, we think of a lot of spirituality.
Yeah.
And yeah, sure, there are, for example, for Christianity, with Jesus, right? There are
Yeah.
photos of him, like we could type in Jesus, we see photos of him.
Mhm.
But to have him like AI like made of like
Yeah.
that's
That's
not
freaky,
cool.
right?
That's not cool. No. I
Yeah.
don't think that's. I mean, for people who are looking to practice their religion like that,
Mhm.
this is a little bit too much. I feel like.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
I feel like the way that I like learn how to learn about
Mhm.
like going to church and stuff in my younger years of education, there was none of this. This is a
Yeah.
new innovation, right? And it's only getting a lot bigger and stronger,
Mhm.
right? Because we were just at the IBS conference, right? Not
Yeah.
to get, I don't want to talk too much, but
We did
the
the
AI, yeah,
yeah,
Jake and I were at a seminar.
a seminar about AI. It was a funny
Yeah.
seminar.
I mean, sure, the guy doing it was kind of, goofy, but
Yeah.
he brought up an interesting point about how AI, right,
Mhm.
as it's ever evolving, it
Yeah.
has the power to create movies. It has the power to create contracts.
Mhm.
It has the power to. He said he was moving his door, right? He was moving his door, and it made a specific sound with like the hinges.
Mhm.
And later on that day, he said he saw an ad for drill for a certain type of construction thing
Yeah.
to fix his door that it picked up, right? So it's really, really evolving. And
Mhm.
in this sense, I don't think this is I don't think this is innovative at all. This is weird.
No, I'm actually very surprised that this is like what the story is about, because when I think of kind of seeing AI in a religious like way, like I often think of like I don't know, like I don't know if this is referred to as like the singularity or something else, but there is, I think, something that's come up around AI where it's like this, is it conscious?
We
And
don't
if it
know.
is conscious, will it be
Yeah.
like more powerful than us? And it's kind of funny because some people who make AI are driven by this idea of one day this is going to be an all-powerful godlike figure. And if I do not help create it, it will punish me for it.
I mean,
And it will punish everyone who did not believe in it. And
That's one
like,
way to
I don't
think
know,
of it.
it's just like this crazy, it's not even conspiracy theory. It's
No,
just like this
that's-
thought.
It's not far fetched. I don't think. Doesn't sound
Okay.
far fetched.
Zoom's looking bored. How do we feel about AI?
That last statement that you just said is so terrifying to me.
It is.
Right?
No, it is.
Totally honest. It is. I feel like I might have been introduced to that concept before, but never really processed in my mind
Mhm.
just how freaky that is to me.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
No. No.
No other words besides like really shook facial expressions, you know?
Gosh. Yeah.
No, yeah, and it's like there are books written about it. I know a big one is Harlan Ellison's "I Have No Mouth, But I Must Scream" about like just an AI that just keeps humans alive forever, just to kind of torture them, basically. um, yeah, no, but I think it's interesting. I think it's I like sci-fi.
Yeah.
So-
And I mean,
But this story in particular is crazy of like using AI as like a weird puppet for like existing religious figures.
yeah, no, I like as I said before, I feel like if like this, I feel like this could definitely fall into the category of idolatry, like
Yeah.
false figures, because this is technology, right? This is not like if we're talking about religious
Right.
perspective, this is not really like the full
Mhm,
like intimate thing. This is just the computer basically, right?
mhm.
So this is really
Yeah. And another thing about AI is that like the way it processes data is like so it doesn't like work quite like like I don't know. It can be very stupid in very interesting ways, in very unanticipated like ways that are difficult to anticipate. So like it's like if you input like for example something like if you try to program something to kind of expel like Christian doctrine,
mhm.
you do not have any like firm like confirmation that that's actually how it's going to talk,
Yeah.
it's
It's probably you type that in, it's gonna pull from probably knowledge of somewhere else on the internet about it, right?
right, yeah. No, it's funny. Like there's a Jerry Seinfeld AI, and it just got taken down because it started saying transphobic things, and it's just like, as far as I know, that's not what Jerry Seinfeld talks about.
And not to spend too much time on the storage, but that's another aspect of it. The deep fake voices, making it sound like these real life celebrities or political figures are saying things when it's just the computer making those sounds. It's not
Right.
really them saying them.
Yeah, that's a whole other aspect of it. That might be a problem in the future.
Yeah.
But for now on, there's memes, and I think they're great.
Yeah, and if it does come to the point where AI does take over, then we'll probably find ourselves in a situation where they basically force us to just, as you said,
Yeah, be their little.
be their daddy.
Be,
What do they say? When we can find ourselves like,
I will say if any AI is processing this in the future, the reason I did not help build you was because I'm too stupid to program. That is why. I would if I could.
Okay.
Machine
Well, I'm not sure that's that'll be much help for you, Jake, but
Yeah.
we'll find out.
Word. Okay. And with that, would you want to take us to our last story?
All right, sure, Jake. For our last story of today, guys, according to UPI.com, a Chinese company is selling a remote kissing device designed to allow long-distance lovers to share their smooches via a cell phone app. The remote kiss device uses a set of silicone lips to replicate the pressure, movement, and temperature of a kiss, which is then replicated by a corresponding device via a smartphone app. The Changzhou Vocational Institute of Mechatronic Technology obtained a patent for the device in 2019, but the patent expired in 2023. The leader of the team said he is hoping other designers will now be able to improve the product.
Wow. So Zoom people, you've joined a radio chat remotely. Would you join a different kind of chat remotely?
I have two things to say about this.
Okay.
One, I feel like this is so Kiss Me Through the Phone, like the song.
Yeah, they heard
Yeah.
the song and they were
Right?
like, this needs to happen. This needs to be something
Yeah.
that can be
Also,
done.
I feel like this is gonna take like catfishing to like a next level.
Mm,
I feel like because there's always those people that like will abuse it and then like
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm Chad, I'm 23, and then they're I don't know. I just see it going in a really weird direction.
right. But I mean, if you're just kissing the same robot, like
Yeah,
what difference does it make, right?
Yeah.
that's true. That is true.
We can find ourselves maybe talking with the AI like, I am your daddy. In a robot way, in a robot way, in an intimate way like that. In a robotic fashion.
Emo seems to have lots of opinions about this.
I
What are you thinking?
don't know what to do with myself. I don't know none of this. No.
None of it?
Well,
No.
Emo,
No.
this is the way technology is going.
It
Yeah,
And we're just
should,
gonna have to deal with it.
it
We're
should
gonna-
stop going. If we're just going to replicate gods and kiss little robots
Okay.
pretending it's someone else, this is so strange to
You're-
me.
No, that is so
you're
sad.
you're gonna
Yeah.
be one of the first ones to go emo. I know that. When the AI
So
takes
be
over.
it.
You're gonna be the one that you're gonna be the one to go.
Yeah.
I'm
I will process
sorry.
you as a non-believer.
I think I'm gonna volunteer as tribute to go as
Oh,
well.
okay.
with Mo.
Okay, so
Yeah,
at
this
least-
does
let's
not sound like
go.
a fun future to be in.
Yeah, this is
I mean-
our future. We're gonna head out.
It's really scary to think about this. I feel like
Oh yeah.
technology really is taking over.
Yeah, I mean, when I was little, I used to think about, well, okay, so what if like the end of the world happens?
Mhm.
It's the robots
Yeah.
versus the aliens
Versus the alien.
versus the zombies,
with the zombies.
and they
I don't
all
think zombies would stand a chance in that
no.
situation.
I mean, like with aliens, it's definitely contender between the aliens and robots. Like
Yeah.
if
And the zombies are just kind of there.
yeah, they're just
Honestly, it's just us. We're the zombies. We're just kind of there. Maybe that's
Yeah.
more how it'll go.
I mean, no, I feel like in that sense, then the aliens would probably prevail because they have AI as well. Probably a lot more sophisticated than ours, even though ours seems pretty sophisticated right now.
That's hard to quantify. Like, I don't know.
But we don't know like what they entail though.
Yeah.
We just have to find out.
Part of me
Yeah.
really wants to know, like, who was the person that came up with the kissing thing and was like, this is gonna be a great idea. Like, everyone's gonna love this. Like,
No, I mean, Julia, we can infer that a lot of people, maybe not specializing in social aspects, they're gonna appreciate this product a lot. They're gonna hop on this product, like they're gonna spend some cash on it.
It's been done. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, for listeners who are not on Facebook Live, it's like who are listening on audio, it's kind of self-explanatory. This the device.
Yeah.
this
It's just a
device in China.
silicone mouth.
Yeah,
it
it's a
looks
silicone.
like.
Yeah, I mean, it has
Um,
we can imagine like the face surrounding it, but it's just the lips that are most prominent. And it brings up the question, like, will they have a set of lips called specifically "daddy"? We don't know. That could be a pretty good marking. Could be a pretty good marking tactic. But we're
No,
gonna see.
I mean,
We're
what
gonna
else are you
see.
gonna call it?
I mean, yeah,
Right? You can't give it a name. It's not a person. So
it's got to be daddy lips.
I love how they say they're trying to improve this product. At like the end, I don't know
Right.
what I don't know what else is there to improve.
yeah.
like,
How do we make these lips better,
yeah.
more
Yeah.
realistic? Like, I don't know. Maybe you can customize them, make them just like the person you want to kiss.
Right.
Well, that might be really
That's
crazy.
difficult,
Could you
though.
imagine if somebody made a mold of your mouth? Well, I feel like you'd have to consent to that. Like, there's got to be a
I don't think
rule.
so. I don't think
against-
so, Jake.
I mean, I guess you could attempt like from visual imagery, and I guess it's probably not that hard to build like
No.
a 3D model of someone's mouth. That's
Yeah.
what I'm thinking.
Like, wait, Julie, what do you want to say, Julie?
it makes you really wonder, like the way you just said that, like, can they add facial hair? Like, can you get a mustache on there? Can you get lip filler for your fake lips?
Doesn't seem that far fetched.
Yeah, right.
It makes me really wonder, like, how far are they gonna go?
Yeah, we can create synthetic mustaches, guys.
Yeah, like,
Technology.
for the dads.
For all the dads out there. Well, I guess the fake mustaches would be for the moms,
Oh, maybe.
right?
I mean, maybe, or maybe
Well,
some people.
for anyone.
Yeah,
you
maybe some
know?
people just like mustaches, kissing with
Yeah.
mustaches. There's
No,
no
of
judgment
course.
there, except maybe if they're in a public space.
Yeah, except and you're calling them. Gosh, my brain.
Oof.
Alrighty, you're listening to 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair. This has been I like the the technology and the daddy episode of the
Yeah.
Morning Buzz.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed this particularly chaotic episode of Chaos Hour and our whole show.
Enjoy your day.
Of course, I'm Jake Goetz, joined by co-host Aidan Ivers, and on Zoom we have newscaster Julius Levin, sportscaster George Calasia, and Tunes on Tuesday segment host Emil McCormack. Have a good morning, everyone.
Bye.
You're tuned into WMSC Upper Montclair 90.3 FM.